Hey everyone, my name's Adam. This show's called Defogging Pokemon Battles. Welcome to our second episode on damage calculation. Last time we covered basic damage calculation. Today we're going to talk about modifiers. This will cover same type attack bonus, type effectiveness, weather effects, burns, multiple targets, reflect, light screen, and aurora veil, as well as some items and abilities. If you've ever read anything about Pokemon battling, you've probably seen the term s.t.a.b. This stands for same type attack bonus. This refers to the basic concept that if you use an attack that matches the type of the Pokemon using it, you'll do extra damage. Same type attack bonus is calculated by multiplying your damage by 1.5. For example, Lapras is a water and ice type Pokemon. Anytime Lapras uses a water or ice type attack, the damage will be multiplied by 1.5. A Lapras using Surf will get s.t.a.b bonus because Lapras is a water type. However, a Pikachu using Surf will not get s.t.a.b bonus because Pikachu is electric type and Surf is a water type attack. The next modifier that has to do with your Pokemon's type is called type effectiveness. This is one of the earliest concepts introduced in the game, and it deals with whether an attack is super effective, regularly effective, or not very effective. For this, we turn to the type chart. This represents one of the oldest and most central elements of Pokemon battles. At times, typing matchups can be the most annoying and make the least sense out of any mechanic, but the more you battle, the more this becomes natural. When battling competitively, you're either going to want to have this chart in a place that's accessible to you while you're battling, or you're going to need to memorize it. Most players will memorize all these relationships naturally over time, but I still have to check in with it once in a while, so there's no shame in that. As you learn within the first 10 minutes of playing any Pokemon game, water beats fire, grass beats water, and fire beats grass. In fact, every type in the game has a unique relationship where it will do either normal, super effective, or not very effective damage against every other type. If one type is super effective against another, it will deal double damage, i.e., if you use a water type attack on a pure fire type Pokemon, your damage will be multiplied by 2. If one type is not very effective against another, it means that the damage will be divided by 2. Types that are normally effective against one another don't get a multiplier. If the Pokemon who is being attacked has more than one type, both types are considered in the calculation. Here's a few examples of how this works. Let's say I've got my trusty Pikachu using the attack Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is an electric type attack, and electric is strong against flying types and water types. If my Pikachu uses Thunderbolt on a Pidgey, it will receive a ×2 bonus for type effectiveness because electricity is super effective against flying types. However, when my Pikachu uses Thunderbolt on a Wingull, it will receive a 4× bonus for type effectiveness. This is because the damage is doubled once for electric being super effective against flying, and a second time for electric being super effective against water. Using this type of knowledge to your advantage can let you deal really devastating attacks once in a while. One classic case of this would be using ice type attacks against combination dragon flying type Pokemon, where you will deal 4× damage. This also works in the reverse. Say my Pikachu is using Tackle on a Geodude. Since Tackle is a normal type attack, it will do 1/2 damage against the Geodude who is a rock type. Now, if my Pikachu uses Tackle on an Aron, not only will the damage be halved because Aron is a rock type, it will be halved again because Aron is a steel type, and I will do 1/4 of the damage that Tackle would normally do. Typing can also help balance out some Pokemon's weaknesses. Say I've got a Bulbasaur using Razor Leaf on a Lotad. Since my grass type attack is super effective against water, its damage is doubled. But, since grass type attacks are not very effective against other grass type Pokemon, the damage is then divided in half. The effect of doubling it and then dividing it in half essentially cancels out any multiplier, and the move is just normally effective. Let's talk about weather. The only weather conditions that affect damage are rain and sunlight. When rain is in effect during a battle, all water type attacks will do 1.5× damage, and all fire type attacks will do 0.5× damage. In sunlight, all fire type attacks will do 1.5× damage, and all water attacks will do 0.5× damage. Keep in mind that every modifier, that's everything covered in this video, will stack on top of each other. So, if you have a water type Pokemon using a water type attack on a fire type Pokemon in rain, you will receive a 1.5× s.t.a.b bonus, a 2 times type effective bonus, and a 1.5 times bonus for using water type move during the rain. In this case, your total modifier will be 4.5. Now let's talk about burns. Burns are interesting. When your Pokemon has the burn status condition, not only are you taking a small amount of damage each turn, but the amount of damage your Pokemon's physical attacks do is actually reduced. I used to think that burns would reduce the attack stat of your Pokemon, but what they actually do is divide the total damage done by your Pokemon in half. This lasts as long as your Pokemon has a burn, and burns don't go away naturally. For physical attackers, this can be a pretty devastating thing to encounter. That's why moves like Will-O-Wisp and Scald can be so popular as counters to physical sweepers. There's another interesting modifier that only happens in double and triple battles. This modifier only applies if you have an attack that hits more than one Pokemon. If you're using an attack in a double or triple battle, or horde encounter, and it's hitting more than one target, the damage will be multiplied by 75%. This only applies to some attacks in very specific scenarios. To be clear on how this works, if I use Surf in a double battle, the damage is multiplied by 75% because I'm hitting multiple targets. But if I use Surf in a single one-on-one battle, the damage is not multiplied by 75% because I have only one target. Some damage-reducing attacks will also involve modifiers. If your target is behind Reflect, Light Screen, or Aurora Veil, the inflicted damage is reduced by half. Reflect applies only to physical moves, Light Screen applies only to special moves, and Aurora Veil applies to both. We'll cover these attacks more in depth at a later time, it's just helpful to know what the damage reduction is for when we're calculating damage. There are also damage modifiers associated with the abilities Fluffy, Filter, Friend Guard, Multiscale, Prism Armor, Shadow Shield, Sniper, Solid Rock, and Tinted Lens, as well as the items Chilin Berry, Expert Belt, Life Orb, Metronome, and any berry whose effect it is to let the holder resist certain types. We'll talk through all these in depth in a future video, but for now, it's useful to know that they all act as modifiers on the damage calculation equation. So now that we've gotten a handle on how damage calculation works, we can think about everyone in competitive Pokemon trying to maximize the amount of damage that their Pokemon are inflicting on their opponents. When battling at a high level, you can bet that your opponent has gone to great lengths to make sure that their Pokemon are dealing the maximum amount of damage possible. In these high-stakes scenarios, it's important to be strategic when it comes to the hits that your Pokemon are taking. The next few videos will start to cover this from the perspective of speed priority and switching. Understanding damage calculation makes the importance of attack, defense, and hit point stats clear. But in the next video, we'll talk about why speed is maybe the most important stat in Pokemon. Hit the link in the description to continue on.